Hello, everyone. This is MJ, and you are at my channel called Reading This Life. Reading This Life is where we talk fiction, friends, and fun. Welcome to the second episode of Dark Pages. This is a brand new series that I've decided to embark on, featuring, highlighting independent horror authors, letting you know of their work, letting you get to know them a little bit, maybe find out where to start with their catalog. So in today's episode, we have Katherine Silva. Katherine Silva has a huge catalog, and I really fell in love with her work when I read her latest, and that's Undead Folk. So I'm going to bring Katherine forward. We're going to do a quick Q&A, and we'll have a wonderful chit chat. Welcome to the show, Katherine.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hello. Thanks so much for doing this. So as I said to my audience, we're just going to do a quick Q&A, and we're just going to let people get to know you and your work. How's that?
Sounds pretty good.
All right. So we already have the questions prepared. And the first one is, what inspired you to become a writer? I know that's a tough question, but I think it's a good place to start.
No, it's one that I've definitely been asked before, and it's I'm sure it's a familiar one for a lot of writers, but it started when I was a kid. I actually was more of an artist versus a writer, so I would draw a lot, and the drawings that I would come up with would often be in story form. So it would just be like, this happened on one page, and then the next page something else would happen with the same characters. And so I'd make these little booklets. My parents would help make these little booklets of these artistic renderings of, lots of dogs doing things mostly. And then from there, as early as like first grade, as soon as I could start writing and creating my own stories, that's what I did. And so that's where it began. And then I think it was probably like sophomore year of high school, I finished my first novel, which was like, a high schooler's novel. So, it was silly, but it was also the first time that I had like finished something, this gargantuan thing. So I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. Like, I know that this is what I want to do. And then I finished another one like the next year. And then about, when college didn't work out, we'll say that, I ended up doing like an adult ed course on creative writing, and met people in that group that I then joined like in a writer's group, a smaller writer's group afterward, and finished writing my first actual novel, which was then self-published. And that was in 2010. And since then, that's where it's been at.
That's awesome. I love hearing those stories. Let me just ask. So when I pick this up, you designed the cover as well?
I did. Yep.
I love it. I love it. All right. Let's get into question number two. Question number two. So it kind of volleys off of question number one a little bit. Did you always write horror fiction, or when did you get into writing horror?
No. I have not always written horror fiction, although I will say a lot of my stories growing up definitely had horror leanings to them. They would be about like kids going to a haunted house, or, creature features. I wrote a story about a monstrous stingray in fourth grade. And that kind of thing was always there. I just liked writing those kinds of things because they were fun. And then like the novel that I wrote in in sophomore year was a thriller. More of a thriller, or mystery. Definitely had more mystery angles. And then I think I discovered Buffy the Vampire Slayer shortly after that, and everything just totally went like to vampires and gothic leanings, and that's kind of where I was like, yeah, I want to write this. This is totally my jam.
Yeah.
And it's evolved, like the kind of horror I've written has evolved over the last few years, but like that's squarely where I knew that was what I wanted to write.
I love it. I love getting those moments where it's just like everything just lines up and this is where you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like there was this discovery of like horror can be so much more than what people assume it is. You know, it's not that visceral first reaction that people have to it. Is basically like it's going to be disgusting, it's going to be gory, it's going to be ostentatious and gross, and that's not it at all. There are some beautiful horror things out there that are in a total spectrum, and even some of the visceral, dark, gory stuff is executed really well and has great meaning behind it. So it's just such a wonderful collection, I guess.
Yeah. I love everything about the genre. Okay. Walk us through your writing process. So do you have any rituals or routines?
My writing process is pretty all over the place because I know a lot of people have like their tried and true. I get up at this time of the day and I write for this amount of time and then I go get some coffee, and that doesn't happen. And most of that is because I have such a crazy schedule. I work full time. And then that schedule changes from day to day. And then, you know, you've got, you know, people in your life that you have to spend time with. You have to pretend to be a human being every once in a while and maintain relationships. So that also makes it hard. But basically my weekends, I devote a lot of time to writing. And that includes the full spectrum of writing, marketing, you know, editing, everything. And then I have Thursdays. This is my day that I usually am in the office doing work too. And then sometimes that doesn't happen. Like today, in fact, I got hit with probably the worst allergies known to man. So I spent a good chunk of the day not doing anything.
Yeah.
And I hate that because then I feel like I'm not getting anything accomplished. But one of those things that is really important is self-care.
Yes.
So
yes.
There's a lot of pressure to just like go. And then I did a little bit of that last year, too much, and really wore myself out. So this year I'm trying not to follow the same path. But basically when I do sit down to write, I typically have what I'm working on pulled up in Microsoft Word, and I have Spotify pulled up with music. And typically it's music that does not have lyrics because I can kind of get into the zone a little bit more. And it'll be something that matches the pace of the scene, and then I'll just write for a while. And that could be for hours, it could be for, you know, half hour. It's basically whatever time I can make it work, I do it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're hitting all of those notes, right? Making sure that you're taking advantage of your time, but then balancing it out with making sure that you're taking care of yourself too.
I try. It's it's still hard sometimes, but it's like, but you have to, right? Because you can only go for so long before
it'll catch up with you for sure.
You just, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so what is the most challenging part of writing horror for you?
I think it depends on the project. I will say that. Some books are like, you know, making coffee in the morning. They're so easy. Like, I have everything all worked out up here.
Yeah.
And you just like breeze through it, guided by feeling or mood or whatever you want to call it, and then it's done. And the last two things that I wrote were like that, which is great. That's what every writer dreams of. And then there are some projects that are just like, yeah, this is not coming out as smoothly as I had hoped it would. And for me, it's those projects that are really the most challenging. And they're all like, all my stuff is pretty much in the same subgenre. I write grief horror or existentialist horror. It's stuff that deals with loss and trying to understand and get through that, but also the idea of like seeing yourself in the scope of life and death, and so it all intertwines. And this particular thing that I'm working on right now is one of those things where I'm like, there's a lot of research involved, and trying to like balance the amount of research that you have to do with the need and the want to just like sprint through it can be really hard. And I'm not a plotter by any means. Usually when I come into a project, I know where I want where I want the characters to end up and what I want the ending to be. And then it's just kind of like, all right, how are they going to get there? Let's find out. And so that usually ends up either working out really, really well or not working out really, really well. And it does involve running into some dead ends and then having to be like, okay, that did not work.
Right.
Now I have to change it. Where do I make that divergence so that this can work out well? But that's, I would say that that's not specific to horror at all. That's everybody goes through that. So that's it for me.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's see. Can you share any tips for aspiring writers or authors, whether it be horror or any other genre?
I think the biggest one that I have found, and that several other authors will echo, is that no matter if you've got this idea for something and then you see that somebody has a similar idea for it that they're writing or they've written, no one will be writing it from your perspective, and your voice is unique. So you should always write what you want to write. Barring, of course, the, don't be racist or anti-Semitic or anti-trans or anything like that. But in your story idea is going to be unique because it's your voice that's telling it, and write whenever you can, however you can, whatever medium works best. I've written things on my phone, you know. I'm getting a call right now. That was really scary, actually. Picked up my phone and it just started vibrating. So like I'll write on my phone. I'll write on little scraps of paper at work if I've got like notes for ideas for things that I want to keep. I will write things longhand in a notebook. However you have to do it, however you have to make the idea go, just do it by any means necessary.
Yeah, I'm big on the notes in the car.
Yeah.
Dictation. Hey Siri, take a note for me so I can remember it later when I'm not going to be able to recall it.
Yeah,
All right.
I get that.
For sure. What are some of who are some of your favorite authors, and what are some of your favorite books?
A lot of them are not horror, actually.
Okay.
I do read horror now pretty like singularly. Every once in a while I branch out to something else, but back in the day, a lot of my inspiration came from Michael Crichton. He's one of my favorite authors. Does the techno thriller very well. Jurassic Park, Rising Sun, just incredible. And then Anthony Bourdain is another one of my favorite authors because he just has such an amazing voice. And he's so sassy. Like it just his he just doesn't give a shit about anyone. And he's what a fantastic writer he was.
He's definitely loved and missed for sure.
Yeah. Agatha Christie.
Okay.
I've read a lot of murder mystery stuff from her. I think that could be part of where a lot of my love for writing about cops and detectives and murder and things like that comes from too. In horror, a few of my favorite writers are Todd Kiesling, who is also a mentor and friend. And I really like, let's see, now all the names are like.
I know they're gone.
Ron Malfi, his writing is incredible. Come With Me is probably one of my favorite books that I've read in the last 5 years. Coy Hall has some amazing stuff, and is definitely one of those authors that like puts out his own stuff and the bar is really high. And it's always really interesting. And he has a short story collection that he put out last year that I read called A Pantheon of Thieves, and I definitely recommend it.
Cool.
Yeah, so those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head, but
they're all good ones. They're all good ones for sure. Do you have a horror movie and or book that scared you when you were a kid?
I mean, I don't know if it like, I don't know if I would say scared me. I definitely liked books and movies that had horror like leanings to them. Like I watched Jaws when I was probably too young, but I loved it. And it's probably the reason I love to write about, creature feature type things.
Yeah.
Tremors also. That was like, I remember that one very well. I was in 3rd grade. I loved the comedy of it. And goodness. I think the one thing that I did read when I was probably too young, and and it definitely stuck with me, was I read the prologue of It by Stephen King. Because we were allowed to go to the library and at school and have like uncensored library time. And so I found that on the shelf and I read the prologue and I was like, okay, kid gets his arm, ripped off. Spoiler, not spoiler.
Yeah.
It's pretty horrifying.
Sure.
And it's a clown. Just add to the terror.
Definitely. I love that. I love the rogue time at the library. That's
so fun. Yeah, library stuff is definitely like having access to a library that was in walking distance of me when I was a kid was huge too.
Yeah.
Like I would get out a ton of stuff that I probably shouldn't have gotten. Like John Grisham, and and Michael Crichton, and I read all the Goosebumps books when I was a kid too. So just
thank God for libraries.
Yes, thank God for libraries.
Yeah, keep them funded. Let's see. So if you could choose one of your characters to come to life and hang out with all day, who would it be and what book are they in?
I mean, it's going to be fairly familiar for everybody that has read Undead Folk, but it would be Amos because he was such a fun character to write. And he's just so genuine and so sweet. And for those of you that do not know, Amos is the fox in Undead Folk. And yeah, it's featured right on the cover.
So good. Love it. And I loved I wanted more. When I was reading the book, I'm like, I wanted more of him. He had that familial, cozy, but something's not right feeling. And I love that in books. It was just like I want to pet him and I don't want to pet him. One of those types of situations.
Yeah.
All right. If you could collaborate with any author, living or dead, who would it be and why? Whether it be horror or another genre.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think collaboration wise, I don't know. That's a really tough question. Which I have been asked before and I don't remember what I answered. But I'm such a selfish writer in that like things have to be like a certain way for me that I don't know if I would be I don't know if anyone could stand to write a book with me because I'm just so like detail oriented and focused is a nice way of putting it. But I guess if I had to pick somebody, I would want to put out something that I was hoping it was just going to roll off the tongue there.
To make it easier, maybe like an anthology. Who would you want to be featured in an anthology with, dead or alive?
Oh, I mean,
that easier?
Gosh, if that would be easier. I think anthology wise, certainly Clay McLeod Chapman would be a big one. Ross Jeffrey, Laurel Hightower, other writers who definitely go into the grief horror genre and do it very well. Red Lago would be another one.
Nice.
Yeah, just to name a few.
Yeah, cool. Okay, now we're going to talk about upcoming projects. Do you have any upcoming projects or works in progress that you could share with us?
I do, and I can. Coming August 22. Is it 27th or 28th? It's Thursday, so I think it's the 28th. There is the sequel to Undead Folk.
No,
which
no,
yeah.
no. That freaking made my day. That made my day.
Yeah.
That made my day. I think in my review I said I wanted
which,
more.
at the time of this recording, this is not public knowledge. So, but it is coming at the end of August. It's called Dead Folk. And it is a very different take. It's a very different follow-up to the first story. It's a we're going pretty hard in the John Wick like revenge
I love it.
bent. So it's going to have similarities certainly to the first one, but it will be a little more gruesome, I will say. So that's coming. I have an anthology that I'm editing with my small press, which is called Strange Wilds Press. The anthology is entitled Boreal, an anthology of taiga horror. So it's all about the taiga biome. And I just announced the contributors to that on all my socials this past week. That is probably going to be coming first quarter of 2025. Nice. They're all stories that encompass grief or existentialism in the forest. They are amazing stories by amazing authors. Some of them are first-time authors too. Nice. It just was an absolute joy to read these stories. So I can't wait for that.
I look forward to that. That sounds so good.
And then I've got events coming in the fall. I don't have any more for the summer. I like to make my summers as not crazy as possible. Yeah. But in September, I will be at Spooktastic Book Fair in Framingham, Massachusetts. That's September 7th, 5th.
7th
I don't know dates. Dates are hard. 7th is a Saturday. It's a Saturday. Okay. Then I am going to be having a reading / signing at Novel, the book bar in Portland for Dead Folk. And that is October 3rd. I will be at ZervCon, which is a convention in Cape Cod, the weekend. I think it's October 5th and 6th. Goodness, what else? There's I'll be in Brooklyn. I'll be in Brooklyn, New York for a reading. I think not that next week, but the week after. Cool. 15th maybe. And then I will be at Merrimack Valley Halloween Book Festival on the 19th, which is the following Saturday.
Nice.
That, I believe, is everything that I have coming up.
For now.
For now, yeah.
For now. All right. So for any of my viewers that are watching our interview and say, where do I start with Katherine Silva? Where would you recommend new readers to you or new readers to the horror genre start with your work?
So you can start in a number of different places. I would recommend Undead Folk. It is a short story to start with. It is a pretty gut punch of a story though. So you could also alternatively start with Hallowed Oblivion, which is a novella in the Wild Oblivion series. It's chronologically the first book in the series, and it's a really good way to get into a series if you want to, follow the same characters for a while. Mm-hmm. if you want a longer experience, The Wild Dark is the first novel in that series, and that would be another really good place to start.
Nice. Cool. So I think we gave some great recommendations. I'm so excited about Dead Folk. I'm so excited. That made my night. You don't have no idea. That made my night.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Oh my gosh. Well, I look forward to all of, your updates and postings on social. You are a fantastic follow. Instagram, Twitter, all of it, I will link down below. I'll also list your recommendations as to where to start with your work, and your website, all of that, all of those places you can find more of Katherine Silva. So I encourage everyone to get out there and get some cat in your life. And this little gem is so reasonably priced. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Like, I want to read this one again soon. I really do. It's just such, to me, it's such a perfect book, and it hit me in all the feels in the right way that I wanted it to. So well done. Well done for bringing that to this world.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you so much for tolerating my questions. And for everyone, make sure to do this thing and do this thing. And, make sure to follow Katherine, follow me, and keep on reading good stuff. Katherine, thank you so much for your time once again. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you.
Thanks for having me. I was really excited to be here.
Cool. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in my next video, everyone. Bye for now.